everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's the first time you are visiting. My name is Hayley, and in today's video I am going to be sharing 5 of my favorite romantasy books or book series. I read a lot, and romantasy is my genre of choice. It is a world that I just love to escape in, and I have already read around 45 books this year. Now, I do read physical books, but I also read on my Kindle, plus I listen to audiobooks. So in the future, I will be sharing a mixture of all of those. But in today's video, I am going to be sharing some physical books that I own. Let's start with ACOTAR, because this is super popular right now, and for good reason. I am obsessed with ACOTAR. But for those of you that are new to this genre, this is the place that I would start. And for those of you that aren't new to this genre, you've probably already read ACOTAR. But Sarah J. Maas, I love her book series, all 3 of them. But ACOTAR has a special place in my heart because of the characters. Now, I think Throne of Glass is technically better, but this was the first romantasy series that I ever read. Maybe not ever read, but the real romantasy series that got me into this genre. And Sarah J. Maas knows how to write characters. I'm not saying that these are the best, most well-written books ever, but she does something with her characters that makes you fall in love with them. So if you're looking for a good romance with mystical creatures and magic, I don't know how to describe it without sounding crazy for anyone who's not interested in this genre, but just trust me when I say this series is absolutely incredible. It's a good mix of romance, suspense, there's some violence in here, great world building, great character development, and I would highly recommend starting with ACOTAR if you want to get into the romantasy genre and you don't know where to start. It's a very easy series to get into, and I just love this. Next up is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I'm so excited for the next book to come out. I think it comes out in July. There's actually a novella that just came out this month called Powerful that I have read, and it's amazing. But Powerless by Lauren Roberts. If you like The Hunger Games, you will likely enjoy this romantasy series. It's not super heavy on the romance, but there is a lot of tension in here. It's classed as a YA book, so young adult, but I really enjoyed this one. Now, this isn't super overwhelming in terms of mythical beings, any of that. So there are humans, they are either ordinary or they have powers, and there's a big divide between the two of them, and the ordinaries are hunted down. But there are trials in here, very much like The Hunger Game. Lots of tension, as I mentioned, a little bit of romance. It's quite difficult to describe this book without giving away spoilers, but it's such an easy read. Incredible banter. The banter in here is amazing. Love the characters and the character development. I would highly recommend also reading the novella because I believe that it's going to tie into the next book, but the ending of this it's a cliffhanger. Really highly recommend this one. It's a 5 out of 5 read for me. So this was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Next up is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. Again, this has kind of Hunger Game vibes about it, but there are vampires in this book. I love vampires. I'm a huge fan of the Vampire Diaries, the originals. I loved True Blood. I even liked Twilight. So I'm into vampires, but this book is so phenomenal. There's 2 books. I've read both, but the other one I read on my Kindle. And The Serpent and the Wings of Night is very different to Powerless. Whilst they both have trials in them, very different storylines. And this one has great romance too. But I would say this one is a little bit lighter on the romance, but the romance that is there is so gripping. Love the characters in here too. I think both books are great. Sometimes the second book in a series doesn't quite live up to the expectation of the first book, but with this, I truly feel like both books are amazing. So if you're looking for trials, romance, tension, and vampires, I would highly recommend checking out The Serpent and the Wings of Night. If you do want to see more in-depth reviews of these books, please do let me know. But the main male character in this series, I absolutely love him. His name is Rain, and I love the twist that happened at the end of this book, but I'm not going to say any more. So this is another book that I would highly recommend. Next up is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Of course, this book had to make this list. I am a big fan of Fourth Wing. This book lives in my head rent-free. I'm always thinking about the characters in here. Now, this is, I guess, a book equivalent to Game of Thrones, but a little bit younger and with some romance in here. This has dragons, and I absolutely adore dragons in books, and the dragons can talk to their riders, not physically, but mind to mind, which is so cool. And the dragons' personalities in this book, so much banter, a lot of grumpiness. The main male character, Xaden, people love him. They fangirl after him over on TikTok, everywhere really, and I have to admit, Xaden is amazing. Now they have to graduate a war college to become a full-blown rider. As you can see on the front, it says graduate or die, and it's very, very brutal. But you have to become a rider by going through all of these different tests. And what a rider is a rider of a dragon. The main female character is really cool in here. She's a little bit fragile. Her name is Violet. And this book has a lot of romance / sexual tension in here, but it's also very gripping. There's a lot of violence, and I mean a lot of violence. Now, I love Iron Flame 2, which is the second book, but there are mixed opinions on it. The second book is definitely more violent, less romance, and the ending absolutely broke me. I was so angry at the end of the second book, but I'm not going to give away what happens. And I have already pre-ordered the third book in the series, which comes out in January 2025. I'm just a big fan of Fourth Wing. I would highly recommend reading this one if you're looking for a romantasy that's not too heavy on romance. It's more about tension. You're looking for a thrilling ride and you like the idea of dragons, then yeah, check out Fourth Wing. Next up is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is one of the most underrated books that I have ever read. This was a masterpiece in my opinion. I cannot wait for book 2. This also has dragons in it, but it's very different from Fourth Wing. This is quite a complex book to read, and what I mean by that is this is a lot more heavy on the fantasy. It has a complex magic system. Whenever I say that to my husband, he just laughs and he calls me a geek, because when I say complex magic system, he's like, who are you, Hayley? But it's quite complex. There is a glossary at the front, and it does tell you a lot more about the words that are used, the things, the magic system, the people. But it is so worth reading. The romance is incredible. Well, is it romance? It is romance in a way, but it is kind of heartbreaking in some aspects, but it is the most beautifully described world. I think if I wanted to live in one world, this would be definitely up there. It's very magical, very fantasy driven, unique compared to some of the other books out there that are popular, especially over on TikTok. I watch a lot of book talk, by the way, which is where I actually got this recommendation. People were like, if you like Fourth Wing, you will like this book, but they're not similar at all. They just have dragons, and the dragons are very, very different. It's just a beautiful read, very visual. It really sets the scene well, and I just think it was spectacular. So if you like some of the other books that I've mentioned, and if you like the idea of a more magical, vivid read, then this is one that I would highly recommend. Sorry if I'm not explaining these very well. I'm new to making book videos, but I'm trying to be as spoiler free as possible. I probably could give a little bit more detail in the future. But yeah, I would highly recommend this book. It's so special, and I think so many of you will love it if you like the romantasy genre. So those were all of the books that I wanted to recommend in today's video. This is very new to me, talking about books. I normally review fragrances here on YouTube, but I want to start talking about books because it is a huge passion of mine. I read every day, at least I try to read every day, but I don't think I've missed a day in months and months. So I wanted an outlet to talk about something that I'm passionate about and find a community of like-minded people that also love this genre. But if you do love romantasy, please let me know your favorite books in the comments down below. I'm always looking for things to read. My TBR list is so large and never ending, I guess, in many ways, but I would love to hear your recommendations. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you in a future video to come. Thank you so much and goodbye.